Hey, Sister Students, today we're going to be talking about the aftermath of World War II. So we finished the war and what's going on back home after the war. So the first thing that we're talking about after the war is we've got a bunch of soldiers coming back from Europe, from the Pacific, and Congress passes something called the GI Bill. That's the nickname, the full name, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act. And what this does is it allows soldiers to get re-implemented and acquainted back home by helping them to get an education, provides educational grants, helps them to buy homes through low mortgage rates. And what this does is it leads to a massive housing boom as all these soldiers are coming back, going to college, buying homes, and it leads to a high birth rate. So this is when the baby boom generation is born after World War II. And so families are not only buying new houses and all this kind of stuff, but they're moving to the suburbs. They're moving from urban to suburban. So it's urban to suburban migration. And what this does is it leads to the inner cities decaying, essentially, as people move out and leave and abandon the inner cities. And the 1950s is all about, as well, conformity. Take a look at this picture. You got these three guys, all of them out on a Sunday afternoon, mowing their lawn. They're all wearing very similar clothing. It's out in the suburbs somewhere. So there's a fear of communism. There's a fear of being different, as being labeled as different. And so in the 1950s, it's all about conformity. The 1950s is a time of prosperity. And in the 1950s, we also see Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was a general in the U.S. military during World War II. He becomes president. One of the major things that he passes that we need to talk about is the highway system, the Interstate Highway Act in 1956. So all of the major interstate highways connecting the country, as you can see in this photo, were built by the help of this act. The goal is to really create a more connected country, have the ability to move the military from coast to coast, and to be able to move efficiently and effectively. And so this new highway system, combined with the GI Bill and all these soldiers getting educated, getting jobs, buying homes, building homes, is leading to growth in the suburbs, because now that you have a highway, you can move outside of Dallas or Fort Worth and live in the suburbs of Flower Mound or wherever. And you can get to work on the highway. We also just talked about the baby boom, so the high birth rates after the war. This is the baby boom generation being born. More babies were born in 1946 than ever before. It's a 20% increase over 1945. Reason being, 1945, we're at war. 1946, time of peace. We're happy. All the soldiers are starting families. And more than 4 million were born every year from 54 to 64, when the boom finally started tapering off after 1964. But by then, there were about 76 million baby boomers, and they made up 40% of the nation's population. Now, why, after the war, is this occurring? Well, after being at war, soldiers want to come home, and they want normalcy. They want to get back to life. They want to start their life. Many 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds were off at war. They missed those years, and now they're ready to marry their girlfriend, to start their family, to get a job and get their life going. And then it's a time of prosperity. It's economic prosperity. When times are good, people have children. When times are bad, like the Great Depression, people don't. There were a lot of also technical innovations in the 1950s. One of the major ones, 1953, Jonas Salk, that's him right here, developed the vaccine for polio. Polio was a terrible disease, killed many Americans each year. And if you had asked Americans in 1950 what their greatest fear was, number one would be communism. Number two is polio. Polio, it was a gripping fear on many Americans. People feared that their children would get polio, that they would be paralyzed, or that they would get killed. And so the creation of this vaccine being implemented by Dr. Jonas Salk, and then he gave away the patent and did not take a whole lot of personal gain from it, allowed it to be widely distributed and polio was pretty much eradicated from the United States. And that's what this picture right here is talking about. So he spends 7 years of his life developing this polio vaccine. This is Dr. Jonas Salk, and he hands it out with no interest in personal profit. He said, I would rather wipe out polio by making the vaccine cheap and easy to get people's hands on than to make a bunch of money and still have polio in the U.S. So, American hero, Jonas Salk. And in 2014, Google honored Dr. Salk. You can see in this Google Doodle that I took off the Google homepage on October the 20th back in 2014. And all these children, thank you, Dr. Salk, for essentially giving away the vaccine that you created so that we could eradicate polio.